Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to ABoutWellbeing Podcast, episode 30 fucking something.
34.
30.
You said 34 before I got here.
I'm here with Glyn Money. He's a fucking legend. I'll write this description in the bio because it would take me too long to bloody say it.
Thanks for having me, man.
Bro, 2020, 2021.
Yeah, man. First of all, I just want to start off by saying I thought I was just coming over because you invited me to play Truth or Dare. But here we are. Here we are with filming a podcast instead, which is okay. A bit misleading in the messages, but I'm happy to be here and happy to be having this conversation with you.
Of course you got something to say at the start of a thing like that, you cheeky bastard.
Yeah, man. 2021.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
What?
Dude, I thought we were still in 2020.
What's been good, man?
Oh, man, it's been really good. Starting the year off pretty fresh. Like, said no to alcohol since midnight. Haven't had any, and just getting back to some wholesome habits, training, eating good, looking after my mental well-being, and life's good, man. How about you?
Yeah, dude. Yeah, dope. So the last 2 weeks, and the first week of 2020 to 2021 was hectic. The last week I was doing I was just rushing around doing all this stuff, all these things, like as far as like I looked at like some of my old notes and stuff that I had. Like I had my book I'd written in like last year from 2019 to 2020. I had written down like all these like goals and things, and I go through all my books and all my checklists and things and look at some stuff. And I went through, and as I was ticking things off, I was like, oh fuck, I'm ticking off way more than what I thought I was going to tick off. And then the last week was like 1, 2, 3, like these huge significant ticks, and I was just like,
nuts,
whoa,
man.
Yeah. And then like the first week, some awesome things have happened, and I just wanted to have like a couple of real chill days. So I had like 2 real chill days, had a little sneaky mushy trip, like the New Year's Eve descended in, and like that was awesome. So like dude, it's been the best, but like actually so good to like relax and recharge. Like I've really like kind of taken that for granted.
I think so, man, because like if anyone knows Corey, he's at 150%, like 90% of the time. So for you to recharge and take 2 days to yourself is a big step. So congratulations.
Thank you, bro.
What was it like for you to like reflecting back on all the goals that you set at the start of 2019 and just realizing how much of them had come to fruition? Like, how did that feel?
Dude, it was kind of crazy, like when you actually go through all your old notes, because I kind of look forward to it because I did it last year as well. And I went through and I was going over all my notes. That was the first time I like did it, and I was like, this is great, like going over everything. And I was like, oh yeah, it's just time to do it again. It was just another thing, like, oh, just get this done, go over my notes, see how it is to make sure that I'm doing everything. But I set the time and the intention to go through it properly. Yeah. And when I started going through all the stuff, and I was like going through the ticks.
What was some of the big ones?
Okay, so one of the ones that happened at the end was like buying the house. So I'm buying this house, and it's settled, and I've been trying to buy it since April, and it's been such a hectic
process.
Oh man, there was just so much going on as far as in terms to buy it, and it finally that was finally big one that settled. One thing that I forgot that I had written on my list was to say goodbye to a whole bunch of things that will anchor me down as far as achieving my best self and the life that I want to have. And when I looked at that, and in terms of like my relationship, some things with work, for some characteristics and qualities of myself, I got to say goodbye to them. And one of the best things that happened, with the breakup of the relationship, was when I broke up, I noticed myself going, I really got to kind of man up with a few things here. Like, there's a lot of things that she said which were completely right about myself, because obviously relationships mirror reflections. All these things were completely right about that, like she said, and I kind of need to man up and take charge and take responsibility and say goodbye to all those bad qualities. And I did. I was like, fuck. Like, I've evolved heaps since then and worked on myself like quite a lot. And some of these qualities that I've just made habits, just as far as like cleaning the backyard, cleaning the house, like getting things sorted, looking after myself, like doing certain things.
All those small choices that you're making every single day has like equaled who you become today. And just a little reflection, I think it was 2 years ago, probably literally 2 years ago from this day, when we were on the beach in Brighton, we were going for a walk, and we were just talking about like what goals that we had, and we kind of didn't know what the fuck we were doing. And to see where I've stepped into, where you've stepped into, and the people that you're impacting now with all the knowledge that you've applied, and now that you're sharing with others is huge, man. So yes, congratulations on the house. Yes, congratulations on reconciling all that relationship stuff. and congratulations on what you've built with ABoutWellbeing.
Yeah.
All about it.
Thank you. I'm all about it.
I don't mean to jack you off this early into the podcast, but man, I'm so proud of you.
It makes me feel good, man. Well, dude, that walk we went on, was it two, I think it was longer, bro.
2018.
Yeah, 2018.
Dude, what is time?
We went, God, what is it? We, that was a really significant walk. We just laid down, like, super open-hearted, super honest, as far as, like, just with some of our goals that we wanted to do, and, like, we kind of, like, started really ticking them off. I actually forgot we had that conversation. I wish I remember exactly what we wanted to. But
you were saying how you had this, like, desire to just express yourself. I think you said you wanted to be a movie star. But then I'm like, no, I think yes, that gets to come through, and there's all this stuff that you've learned in the gym. Like, all of our mates, we come to you for any sort of training advice, any sort of nutritional advice. So combining the two into how you serve the world now is pretty epic.
Oh, thanks, bro. Yeah. And another reflection on you as well. Remember, you were saying, I don't remember the exact words for it, but I remember you said it was like something to do with traveling, and as well as embodying a bunch of things of like who you want to be in this lifestyle that you wanted to live. And I remember coming back from Bali, because me and Glyn, we went to Bali start of 2020, and it was the fucking best trip. Like, we had the best time. We did a whole bunch of biohacking stuff. We did a whole bunch of dancing. We just like a whole bunch of chats and like just some epic bonding. But I remember coming back from that, and you were like, fuck, man, the last 2 trips that I have done, or the traveling that I've done the past couple of years, I've just got to like embody and live the life that I've always desired to live, and I have lived it like as best as possible. And like so many people never get to have that. And like the fact that you just went out there and got that, congrats to you, bro.
Thanks,
like, you kicked some fucking ass.
I think
like,
that,
I look up to you for that.
I appreciate that, man. Yeah, I think like my main reflection during that whole quarantine COVID period was like, fuck, no one in the world is able to travel so freely at the moment. And at that point, I'd done maybe 4 or 5 really big trips. And I just said yes to like traveling by myself, and yes to like jumping into the unknown in that space. And realizing, one, what sort of courage that takes is huge. But I had lived a version of the dream that I had when I was 18, 19, going traveling around the world and just like wanting to feel free, which like freedom is one of my number 1 values. So it was epic to live that, and I've grown a greater appreciation for those experiences, since we can't necessarily have them in this now moment. So true. You know what story I almost shared? Like on that walk we were having on the beach, before that we were in the car listening to like the Veronicas sniffing Jungle Juice. But I was like, I don't know if I could share that, because it was a pretty fun time.
Yeah, it was a pretty fun time. You know what's funny is you said that you thought share that, but that's recording.
Oh, fuck. Oh, man.
That camera shut out for a couple of seconds. Didn't happen. Alright, so what do you think was everyone does a little bit of party sometimes, get a bit of fun. We were young, dumb, had great intentions, but a little bit stupid at the time.
Yeah.
So what do you think was like the best thing that you either learnt or overcome in 2020?
Learnt or overcome. A lesson that is really present for me right now as I was reflecting, like every single year, everyone seems to set these like big audacious goals, which is awesome, but it's not about where we're going, it's where we're coming from. And when we realize that we're already, like when we're coming from worthiness, when we're coming from wholeness, and when we're coming from that place of abundance, there's nowhere to get to, and we like, the fruits will come because we've addressed the root of the things that we're desiring already within us. So it's just that like going internal before thinking that the fruits that come external are going to fulfill us, and realizing it's always an inner game.
Give us an example.
Well, you'd know when you're out and you maybe you have like a crush on a girl, and then eventually after like courting her, you eventually get the girl, and you realize that, you know, getting the fruit wasn't the thing. It was like always within like the feelings that you were experiencing before you got the girl was the actual thing that lit you up. And when you got it, you're like, oh. So it's like realizing, like coming from that worthiness. Yeah. I don't know why I chose that as the example. I'm like, fuck.
No, still, it's a good example. So what do you reckon is your best intention for 2021?
My word for 2021 is discernment. Like being really discerning
what does the word discernment mean? I'd have to Google it.
Well, let me explain.
Yeah.
So just being really discerning with all my choices, being really discerning with the food that I'm putting in my body,
Okay.
being really discerning with the people I'm surrounding myself with,
So
understanding
being very
that
aware of the choices
Yeah.
that you're making.
understanding that, you know, the people that you surround yourself with are impacting so much of your life and so many of the decisions that you make. Being discerning with my energy and time, and really valuing it. Because we can waste a lot of time on meaningless stuff, but if we're discerning with the choices and know that we're making the choices that are leading to becoming our best selves, then we start to experience life feeling a lot better because we're making those choices that are more aligned with who we truly are.
Did you do any of that in 2020?
Some of it. No, for sure. Like 2020 came back from traveling and we're in lockdown, and you started this thing called Frosty Fridays.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a very discerning choice to surround myself with a like-minded bunch of guys who really cared about their health. And in doing that, it helped me to really up level in that area.
You up-leveled hard.
Yeah,
We're
having ice baths every week, saunas every week. I started eating vegetables, which is a big deal because I don't eat vegetables.
Yeah,
I do now.
That was a funny story with Glyn.
Yeah.
Like, I had to walk your hand through how to cut the veggies. He like messaged me and he's like, dude, alright, okay. You made me veggies before and I thought they were delicious and I want to eat them again. I don't want to eat any other veggies than other ones you make.
Yeah.
Can you show me out? So I went through the house and was like, we'll cut all the veggies up, we did a prep.
Yeah.
You've just been on since then.
So being discerning about, you know, having that group of guys in my life impacted how I felt. In like just physically, like this physical vessel, like 10 times more. Because actually coming back from COVID and traveling, I was sick for like 2 months. I didn't have COVID. Well, I don't know, but but I was sick for 2 months. I couldn't shake this cough, and then I was like, I really just need to start looking at the choices I'm making with how I'm eating, with how I'm like moving my body, and get aligned with people that are really succeeding in that area. Which is you. You know what I mean?
Bro. Well, it was all of us, really.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of succeeded in that area. It was funny as well when you did come back and you were kind of sick for a little while and how you were eating. You were like a little bit chub.
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, but it was really good just to see, like, you know, the last few months you were just like, nah, made the decision, cut it out, done all the stuff, stick to your fasting like absolutely crazy. If you guys don't know, Glyn is the fasting wizard when it comes to fasting. Stuck to that stuff like crazy and like transformed your body, but you've kept it like the whole time. Even when you have had choices like, you know, I want to eat this shit thing today. I want to drink and do this stuff. You've got all the knowledge and you've stuck to all the other disciplines and practices that you can. It allows you to do those things as well as keep a really tidy rig and feel good about yourself and live life at the same time. People say, I have heard just externally my own life. People say, oh, it can't be done. It's like, well, look at Glyn. He's doing it.
100%. And like, if you're making the correct choice 80% of your life, 80% of your week, you're going to be able to like really achieve some amazing things. And it's just like, one, establishing what the correct choice is and like getting into the routine and habit of that. So that is your default. And it's okay to have some like cheesecake and eggnog here and there. As like, because when we get back to Monday, I know I'm making the right choices with how I'm like nourishing my body.
Yeah. How did your shadow side show up in 2020? And did you get to overcome it? Are you saying goodbye to any of that stuff in last year? Like,
It showed up really big in 2 occasions.
Ooh.
One was the deep mushy journey that we did in October. And I had this experience 4 years ago where I sort of went through an existential crisis on mushies. Funnily enough, where I was like, what's the point in anything? Nothing means everything.
Well, talk us a little bit about that. Give us just a real short summary of how that happened. Because when people say people have freakouts and psychedelics and the rest of it, a lot of the time it's just psychedelics showing you the honest truth of life. And then people like kind of freak out things. They kind of just give us a real
because unless you've experienced the feeling, you don't have a reference point to it. But to describe the feeling, it was the most dense, heavy, scary emotion that... like it's a real, like if we're talking about frequency and vibration, it was the lowest vibration I'd ever experienced. And just really dark thoughts about there's like everything is so pointless. And just feeling like my life was pointless, that I didn't have any meaning with anything that I was doing. And that sort of kicked off this journey with anxiety because After that, I no longer could smoke weed because it would like bring on the same experience that I had on mushrooms. I was started traveling the world, and I would just be in the common room with people I'd never met playing cards, and then like this like cloud would like show up and be like, hey, I'm back, and I'd be like, fuck. And like I didn't know how to explain to people what I was experiencing, and I would just like bail and just like run and get into my body as a way to distract myself from the thoughts and feelings I was having.
So if you're at a social situation and felt a sort of dark happening, and you'd literally just leave, be like, fuck this, I'm anxious and depressed as fuck right now, because there's no meaning in anything showing up.
Exactly. And like I always knew, well, I didn't always knew, but I always had I learnt that to move through anything you have to feel it. And I've done a lot of feeling, a lot of just revisiting and like healing that experience. But the experience I had on shrooms where with you and the boys, it showed up again. But
did it?
Yeah.
You didn't say it, did
Well, dude, I was lying down for 20 minutes.
We thought you were just sleeping, bro. You said you're like, because you're like, I'm so tired, I need sleep. Okay.
I was just not in a good place. And I had the experience where instead of like feeling the feelings that come with it, like being the human Glyn, feeling the emotions, it's like I jumped out of my body and I was just observing myself from this like unconditional place of love that felt so true, like the truth of our being. And a lot of the time we're not able to access it because we have all these filters and distortions and biases with our personalities and our egos that we aren't really able to access that pure part in us. So I faced off with that and got to experience what it's like to just be in unconditional love. And then I had another experience when I was doing that 5-day water fast, where day 4, like I was like, man, this is pretty good. Everything's great. Day 4, I got to your house to do the ice bath and I collapsed on the floor. Probably like, yes, I wasn't eating food, but it was like a different sort of thing that I was moving through. And funnily enough, it was 4 years ago that I had this existential crisis moment. And every day of a water fast is like a year of your life. So day 4 years ago, what was I going through? A lot of anxiety, a lot of just like existentialism. And I was just being with it and went into the ice bath and had this big emotional purge of just like allowing myself to like really, really feel through some of those emotions. And it's like, why would you want to do that? The reason why like I do this work is so that I can show up and be more light and joyful in every other aspect of my life, while still acknowledging that, this is a part of the human experience as well.
Yeah, straight up. And if you guys that don't know, and if you are kind of interested, like, kind of what if you're listening, if you're someone who's listening, it's like, what sort of Glyn talking about there? It is so legit, and they've got all the science around it, that you store your emotions in the fucking fat cells of your body. So when you get into ketosis, or you're just burning fat in general, and you're doing kind of some hectic stuff to get rid of these things, and you store, like, as well, you store different parts of emotions, like, in your brain as well, and you've got to kind of wire stuff. Like, if you listen to the podcast of Nikki Cassidy, she talks about the brain science of firing and wiring. Unless if you have an emotion and a feeling and a new brain connection at the same time, it solidifies it. So if you have something negative that happens in your life, and it's like really shit, and you make a new brain connection and then you feel really bad for it, every time that brain connection or semi-experience happens, your brain has to go, like, you'll start to feel shit, anxious, depressed, or something like that. So you kind of have to fire and rewire things in order to get stuff to go through. So what Glyn does, just on like a physical point of view, a lot of the time is, where self-awareness is so fucking critically important for just things in general. Like, literally, they say self-awareness is the tool for emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is way more important than actually having an IQ, because, we live in a fucking people world, right? So by doing this type of work and thinking and knowing all these type of things that Glyn talks about, he's intentionally like focusing to unfire and unrewire things in his brain and get through them and process them, so that when he shows up differently in the world, he's having different firing and different wiring happening with different emotions and different feelings. So he's the state that he is in for, majority of the time is who he wants to be, and is way better for him in terms of like, his future and just general fucking happiness.
Showing up.
Yeah. So that's just the science side. If you're a little bit confused.
That was great, man. You made it so grounded. I was like way out here, and you've just brought your audience back and it's like, that makes sense.
I get it. Where the sense is.
But yeah, man, feel it to heal it.
Yeah, true.
And
So how was that? So okay. So you did that. We had the mushy trip. Had the mushy trip showing up differently. So the 2021. how are you going to bring and embody those lessons? Or what have you thought about any of the stuff like, okay, I've integrated this part of myself, I got over that, the problem, nothing means anything. So now where are you at everything means everything? And, what do you got plans of that for 2021?
Yeah, for sure, man. And it's just sharing. Like, I share my experience. A lot of my coaching clients that reach out to me, it just happens organically. I share my experience and the wisdom that I've learnt based off those experiences, and then someone else might be 1 or 2 steps behind me, and I'm just there to like be a lighthouse and guide them through that process, whatever they're being with. So just showing up to service whenever it presents itself, and just embodying more. Like, I want to be embodying more joy, more love, more presence in my everyday friendships with my family. And just knowing that it's all here right now, and like how much of right now can I really tap into and be here for.
Little reflection for you, because you actually do this really well, is that every time that we're in a social setting or situation, and I'm getting too hectic, I'm getting too hyped up, we're getting keen, we're smashing out all these goals, we're talking about all these future situations, all these things are happening, or like we're with a group of people and everyone's just going like crazy, getting all excited. You're always that person that just goes, what about right now though?
Yeah.
Like all the time. And I love that about you, by the way.
Appreciate that, man.
It's really good.
We had a lot of those moments. We had that Steamies, Frosties.
People don't know, Frosty Fridays is basically, so we just have a bunch of guys come to my house on every Friday. We jump in an ice bath. We had this thing called Steamy Saturdays, when it was like a bunch of people who very intentionally wanted to, I guess, succeed and better themselves. Yeah, and up-level themselves.
Very businessy,
Yeah. So we'd all kind of catch up on a Saturday night and just literally discuss goals, finance, hold each other accountable, talk about relationship, like anything that we could do to like better ourselves. We'd talk about it on like a very intentional setting in order to just like improve ourselves, or just like, get really motivated. Because some of the times, like, even if you are like, I find myself like, hey, I think vision of myself is like, I think I'm quite motivated to like get stuff done. But even when you have like that on a weekly basis, like, I was 10 times more motivated, like at that time, than what I am now, just because you're just in those heightened emotions all the time, which was fucking elite.
That's it, man. And like the crew you surround yourself with are the ones that impact you the most.
True.
What else are you going to do on a Saturday night during COVID when nothing's open? We don't really drink anyway. Well, not during that time of year.
You SMC, naughty boy.
We're like, all right, what do we actually want to do? What do we want to create? What do we want to fucking bring into our reality? And how can we get there? How can we hold each other accountable? How can we be the reflection? Like, hey, you said you wanted to do this, but you're showing up like this. It's not aligned. Like having that sort of accountability with like a close group of friends in Adelaide.
If you can set that up, by the way, if anyone's listening, if you can set up, like, just reach out to anyone that's like kind of interested, that's on the same wavelength, or even just kind of convince them to people to hang out, just to have like, whether it's a call or whether it's like actually group hanging out physically, and just like, well, what we did, which is really handy, was we all just kind of set an intention before, like we'd all hang out, just like great, like a group for just the guys hanging out, and then we just set an intention like, hey, this is what we're going to be talking about today, whatever it is, and then we just go through and all just have a really focused chat about like ourselves and just like goals and whatever the rest of it, motivation. And like, I highly recommend that. If anyone else hasn't experienced that, like, go out there, even if it's just like you and one other person or you and 2 other people, just doing that and talking about those things is fucking ridiculous.
It's funny because like obviously I learned a lot of facilitation skills from Man Cave, which is a program that I'm a coach in, and that night it was like I was feeling a bit kinky. I was like, I'm gonna try some shit with these boys. Fellas, sit down. We're gonna set some intentions. And, like I think you were on it. You were like, all right, and then some of the others were like, what's going on here? And then everyone like bought in by the end of it. But it's so powerful, setting your intention and just opening up your brain to really allowing yourself to receive what it is that you're asking for.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense when you say that, because like how long, if you just think about your normal week when you're kind of in autopilot, right? How long do you spend, like how many hours do you actually put in for really focused attention for like where you are in your life, and what you want to do, and how you want to get there? Like, where's the room for that? Because it's the same type of thing. Like, when you go to the gym, you're in there for an hour. If you're not focused on training really fucking hard, you're not going to make any muscles, right? But if you're going in there, you're training hard, you've set the intention, you're focused, you're getting the best muscle stimulation as possible, you're going to grow. How often do you do that? Obviously, like thinking and reading and doing stuff. Like when you go to uni, it's like, okay, so how much of these lessons am I taking in or something like that so I can study and smash these exams? And the more I study, the more I learn, the more I focus, the more able I am to crush that goal for that. Now, if your problem is, you know, what do I want to do in my life? I want to live the best life. I want to be the most elite, optimized version of myself. I want to be fucking just happy. I want to like myself.
Yeah.
Imagine if that was the goal. It's like, well, how long are you actually spending at it? And what are you, like, avoiding?
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're spending a lot of time avoiding, not facing those demons, and it's hard for you to overcome those things, like with the resilience, ice baths are great for getting good at resilient, if you wanted to know. And if you're not doing those things, you're not spending that time doing those, then it'll never happen. One thing, one thing that I remember was like being in Bali and doing went to a group meditation, and I remember sitting there, and the best thing about the meditation was just going into it, and I said, all I want to do is just think about how I want to set up my life and like what future do I want to live. And I remember sitting there, and I was in the meditation. It was like a 50-minute meditation that we're laying down for. 15 minutes in, boom, I like come out and I was like, fuck, I need to write all this down. I figured everything out. And then I was like, fuck, well, I can't leave now. Like, that's way too awkward. So I was like, let's just go back in and think about all the things you were thinking about. Then I was like, another link to the chain happened. And then 15 minutes later, I was like, fuck, I figured everything out again.
Yeah.
Shit, I need to write this down. And then did it again. And that was purely just because I set the time to think about it.
In a real intentional space.
And bro, I've ticked off heaps of in a real intentional space. And I've started ticking off all of those things. It's fucking crazy.
Yeah,
man.
man.
So it's just so...
I love that. And to circle back to what you were saying before, like a lot of people like aren't enjoying their life, but there's this quote by Alot too, where it's like you have to be sick of your sickness before you want to get healthy.
No, I like that. Yeah.
You have to be sick of your life before you want to start to improve it and make changes. And a lot of us are blind. Like a lot of us are blind to how we truly feel because we're just numbing out all the time. And like when we have that light bulb moment, like, hey, actually, how I'm spending my time doesn't actually really light me up, then until that moment comes, then it's like...
So one thing that like what I got, which is really interesting, was talking about the mushy trip that I did on New Year's. I just had like a real small amount of mushies just to sort some of my thoughts out to overcome, well, not overcome anything, just literally sort of, I've come to 2021. I took us the mushies like 2 p.m, finished off, it was like 5 p.m.
Before you tell the story,
okay.
Why would anyone want to do a mushy trip to sort their emotions out? A lot of the reasons that we engage in this is because mushrooms really just removes the filters and just helps you to see a lot clearly like the truth of the issue and what's really going on underneath the surface and the biases and yeah. Yeah,
100%. And it does that physiologically in the brain for brain science. So literally your right hemisphere of your brain and your left hemisphere of the brain become more active and they become more fluid.
Start making out.
Yeah, so literally increases BDNF, neuroplasticity, increases the actual amount of brain cells. This has all literally been proven. So by doing that and increasing your brain activity is what you just said then is the result of it, which is fucking so handy to happen. So yeah, I did a little bit just to sort of figure some stuff out. One of these things that's really cool, what I got out of, which is making sense to what you were saying beforehand, was it clicked for me, and I've written down a page, it's like somewhere around here in my book, and I was just like, everything is a conversation, right? Everything comes down to it. So... And this was just, I was just thinking about, okay, so if you can optimize your communication skills and you can have better conversations, and if you're not holding back from any conversations that you need to have, your life will drastically improve. Now, where are the conversations? So the external conversations, so with someone else, or the internal conversations with yourself. Any decision you make is an internal conversation with yourself or with someone else. If I want to get paid more money, you need to have a conversation with someone who can give you more money. If you need to overcome some things or make some actual decisions, it's a conversation with yourself. And where that sort of come up for me was like I had this really healing conversation with my mum. So I wrote down like a massive letter for her for just like a whole bunch of things that I needed to kind of talk about, because me and mum I lived with my mum from the age of like 22 to like early 27. And man, that's some like real toxic stuff that happened between there, just because I was on my journey, she was on her journey, blah blah. Anyway, so what I did was I just wrote down a bunch of the notes because I want mum to be one of my best friends, and there was just a lot of things that were completely swept under the rug. So I had this conversation with her, and we went through all the stuff, and it was one of the best, most healing conversations I've ever had. I know it needed to be done, and it's like really hard to actually go out there and do it, but I know I needed the conversation. Cleared a whole bunch of things. Then there was a whole bunch of conversations I need to have with myself in order to like get over my last like relationship, because there was some sort of things that I was like kind of thinking about, whatever it was. And I had these like conversations with myself, and I was like, dude, like you're so good. And one of the things that Mushies did, which really helped out, was like I kind of set myself into 3 different people. So it was Corey, had my feelings, and then my mind. And then like, it was really funny because my feelings, when I started thinking about the relationship, was like, nothing come up. I was like, all right, feelings happen again. Let's dive on some trigger points. Like, let's think about the relationship and some of the parts that would really hurt. Nothing come up. All right. Why then are like you sort of thinking about this stuff? And then I was like, had to like kind of think about my mind. And my mind was sort of like, well, you've got all these preconditioned things that happen when you were a lot like younger, as far as if you break up with a girl and then when the other one's moving on, and that gives you a good excuse to move on, but you didn't want to because you didn't want to hurt the girl. Because I had some toxic stuff happen when I was younger, and I was like, oh my God, so that's why. And then like, so I figured all of that out, which was like amazing, absolutely amazing to happen. But that was just a conversation with 100%. Myself.
And I think a lot of your listeners are like, yeah, that sounds great, but having the conversation is uncomfortable. And yeah, it is uncomfortable. The reason why you would have the conversation is like, not having the conversation, how does that manifest in the relationship? How much is that unhealed resentment still showing up in today's like interactions and stuff? So having the courage to speak truth into all the uncomfortable places is a really big growth area. And even you and me, like we've had parts in our friendship where there's been friction, but we just have the conversation, even if it's uncomfortable, and we're able to clear it. And then so there's like integrity in the space where we just feel good
between, like especially with friends, like between like me and you, when we do have friction, because it's just helping us.
And we understand, we're like Corey's not a bad person, I'm not a bad person, we have some different values or beliefs at some point that clash.
Here's this,
right?
And
we get to like come to an understanding, which is.
So here's one thing that come up in the little mushy trip as well. So it didn't take much. It was just enough for me to think, and it was just I just like, had room to really just think about my stuff. So when I split my, I guess, mind into 3 different things, it was like my mind, my feelings, and then me, who's observing them. One of the things that happened come up in my feelings was when everything is a conversation. I was like, okay, so here's 2 really important things. So our feelings. Every time we want to talk or have a conversation with someone, it comes from our feelings, and then all we're trying to do is put words on top of how we feel. So even if you feel like you're like, oh, I feel like I want to tell my friend this, it's very hard to get things across and the right message across because like your feelings are trying to express themselves. And I always try to, and I think, and what happened was I was like, feelings are also very similar to like a color. It's like, how do you describe your feelings? How do you talk to them? It's very hard. You can't put like sometimes the right words if you don't have the right vocabulary to that. So I was like, well, how do you increase your ability to have better conversations if it's like fucking so contradicting as like describing a feeling as like a color, right? Because we all feel things differently too. And I was like, 2 things come up. One was how open your heart is. So if you're a really open heart and you're extremely open-minded, being able to receive things from someone else and listen and take it in is going to be so much easier than someone who is self-doubting, feels guilty about something, shameful, as anxious or depressed, and because they're closed off, when someone talks, it's just like coming up against a wall, and that's when friction comes in, right? Or the other way is to really know someone on a real deep level, because if you know someone, it's sort of like that. It happens when you have a conversation without even talking. Sometimes you get it. You just look at each other, give each other a look, and you're like, I understand everything you're fucking saying. So it's like 2 ways is like doing that, and how do you do that is, well, how to communicate, upgrading your vocabulary, learning a bunch of things and being aware for that.
And one more thing I would add to that is creating the safety in the friendship where I feel safe enough to tell you if you're being a dick, and I know that you're not going to think that I'm like hating on you. Like having that sort of comfort with someone, because a lot of the time we don't speak our truth because we don't want to upset the other person, but we might like speaking truth into the uncomfortable places is love as well. Love isn't always just like happy emotion. It's just being truthful and having integrity with someone. If you're withholding what's really going on for you, and like some thoughts that you like might be circulating. Love that, bro.
100%.
Big time.
That was good.
Oh, mate.
So
good.
Well, what are I'm just trying to think of a really good question for you here.
You've been asking some great questions, man.
Thanks.
And they've just been going in these little tangents. Like, I like where this is going.
Well, what are some of your plans for 2021? Have you thought of anything so far?
It's simplicity for me, really. Like, obviously, like I bought a house late last year as well, which is being built at the moment. So, stepping into that has brought up a lot of my shit around like this like young boy archetype, where I'm where I'm like, I'm just going to be free and travel and like save all my money for these trips. And now it's like, oh, I own this thing, and it's a commitment. It's a 30-year commitment where I'm paying a mortgage.
Yeah.
So that is on the horizon. But I'm like, all right, so what are the things that really bring me well-being and happiness? And I'm like, all right, my physical health. Like, how am I taking care of myself? How can I dive into that even more and be even more discerning with those choices?
So what were the biggest things for your physical health last year that you learned? Yeah.
There were a few things. So I started doing ice baths every single week religiously, and just like activating that vagus nerve, and acting the vagus nerve really helped my gut and my brain and my heart to be more coherent and to be able to make better choices, which was the main benefit for me, as well as the physical health and stuff. I started drinking celery juice every morning. Like I was like, I'm gonna, like lots of people talking about it, I'm gonna try it, and it really worked because I was sick for about 2 months, and it helped me get over my sickness. My skin got so much better. And I started having, like, obviously I've always moved and been to the gym, but I started every week having like a 45-minute sauna and allowing myself to detoxify that way. And veggies. So many things, man. So many things I changed.
Yeah, it's
actually wasn't just working out.
It's been such a huge year. Actually, 2020 has been one of my favourite years, to be honest. It's been super transformational.
You kick butt.
Yeah, thanks, man. We also, you did heaps of plant medicine towards the end of the year.
Well, not heaps. We did one mushroom trip, and
we did. Yeah, but you had some others.
I did a peyote ceremony.
Yeah. What is peyote?
Peyote is a cactus plant. I think it's grown in North America. The native Indians used it as for their own healing, for their own cleansing of their minds and their bodies, to really, clean up those you can explain it in so many different ways, but cleaning up all the distortions that we might hold in our ego that are creating suffering in our lives, which is, it was an interesting experience, this one, because I'll share, the night before I was out sending it, I was partying, which is like, before you go into a ceremony, it's important that you are treating the plant with respect. And your body. With respect, and I wasn't doing that, so there was... I came clean, and I told the facilitator, I'm like, look, this is the experience I've had. I don't think I should sit the ceremony. And she convinced me that, it's going to be fine. You can still come. I think you really need to be here. And so I went down and sat in the teepee and had the medicine. And as soon as I had that medicine, like I just knew what sort of night I was in for. No. And it was like an ass whooping from grandfather Peyote, who really just had me purging from 12 p.m. to 6 a.m., like just cleaning my body of all the toxins and alcohol, and really just being with some of the thoughts and distortions in my mind that were creating suffering. Because anytime we suffer, it's because we have a thought that's out of alignment with our truth. And it was a process of like just being with some uncomfortable things that I was harboring and holding on to, and just like allowing it to move out of my body, like as I'm purging. Like as I'm purging, I'm not just like throwing up. I'm actually getting rid of thoughts and beliefs that are creating suffering in my life. And saying goodbye to them as well. Yeah. So what would be some of the best qualities that you're bringing in for yourself for 2021? I think it's a sense of worthiness. Like just knowing that no matter what my 3D reality looks like, I'm worthy. And what's your best quality you're saying goodbye to from 2020? I mean, about your worst quality. Yeah, the worst quality. Yeah. It's not that I'm saying goodbye to any of the qualities. It's like I'm accepting that they exist and I'm not choosing them anymore. Okay. Yep, I like that. And what would be like your best advice from the lessons that you have learned in 2020 to give to someone for 2021? Best advice. Your best advice. Best advice. Fuck, this is a big one. Just in 20 words, go. No, I'm kidding. I keep coming back to just know that you have it all here now. Like, yes, we have all these goals that we're moving towards, and the fruits are going to come, but you have it all here now. So how can you get so damn grateful in this moment for your family, your friends, the income that you're able to earn that allows you to live your life, and just knowing how abundant and how rich this moment is. Tapping into that, reminding yourself of that, and then going about your day, then taking the action. But just having that as the place that you operate from. How do you get good at that?
So for anyone who's listening, if they're like, okay,
like a tangible action.
Yeah, like seriously, what can you actually do to get good?
So I had, I've had this for like 5 years now. I have an alarm in my phone 3 times a day, and it's a gratitude alarm. So every time that goes off, I just know I need to stop whatever I'm doing to really tap into that gratitude.
I didn't know you had this.
Yeah, man. This is we can sign up for Man Cave and no, this is just one thing one of my mentors taught me, and it has shifted my life so much in terms of like a lot of the times when we're striving for goals, it's because we feel like we're lacking it. But just tapping into the abundance of the now moment is reminds you that, you know, like yes, and like I have it all now and I get to keep striving. Yeah.
I like that. All right, here's another one. 2020. How did you integrate? Did you make any progress, firstly, on your masculine and feminine energy in 2020? And how did you integrate it? And what does that look like? Firstly, did you get good at integrating?
I'm wondering what your like definition of masculine and feminine energy is, because everyone has a different concept.
Okay,
so
well, what's yours? Because I'm asking you the question.
So masculine is a lot of like structure, discipline, like really like having the vision, like and leading the way, and then the feminine is like the creativity and the flow and the dance in between. And I think every year I become a little bit better at doing that, and just having a vision for myself, a vision for my life, and what I'm moving towards. But then also I know I'm really good at like playing in that as well, and just like dancing in between the space of, you know, this is my vision, but I'm gonna have fun along the way, and I'm gonna you know, I believe that the greatest thing that we can offer the planet is our own self-expression. So allowing more of that to shine through as we go about the vision, as we go about serving people is what I really try to embody.
Okay, so what are some of the, like for people who are listening to completely understand, what are some of the masculine things that you've achieved? And what things have you actually done to allow the feminine to come through as well?
For sure. So I would say the masculine things I've achieved would be the body image that I had on a pedestal.
Because I've seen it. If you understand, like with Glyn as well, when it comes to like doing his body stuff or writing out plans and stuff, he'll just have this like the biggest spreadsheet I've ever seen in my life. Spreadsheet. And he just goes through and just crushes everything on there every single day, and it gets so disciplined and routine with it. It's really impressive. Yeah,
for sure. So like having a goal for like my physical vessel is really masculine, and then how I blend the feminine creativity in that is like how I express that. TikToks, photo shoots, like that's all a part of my expression that that I'm tapping into, and then I just know when I'm doing that and I'm sharing that, I'm giving permission for someone else to do the same and to really tap into that.
People do, and like when it's really, because you're really forgiving to let yourself get into the. What I'm saying, forgiving, you're really good at getting to the feminine things like really quickly. And you're like, cool, it's time to be on. I find like a lot of dudes find it hard to get into that, and like when you do that, everyone around you is having fun, and it's great, and then they, from witnessing you do that, allows them to get into the feminine a little bit more. That's like I was watching there's one TV show called Avatar: The Last Airbender, and like the main character is like in the very masculine setting of like the fireplace, whatever it was, the Fire Nation place, and they go to have a dance party, and no one can dance, and they all suck, and then he's out there and just starts dancing and doing these crazy moves, and then everyone slowly starts like jumping in. So like that's you do that, and that's like really
that's a part
good.
of the medicine of me, and it's like that'll trigger some people into judgment. And it's also an invitation for some people, like, oh, I have a judgment around this because I would never let myself express myself like that. And a lot of guys have that, and just knowing that because it's uncomfortable for me sometimes to step out on that ledge. Just knowing that when I do that though, it's like liberating, not just for me, but for someone else that might be inspired to really dance or share some poetry and express something deeper that's going on within them outside of who they've always been.
Yeah, because you need that balance, man. Like
I think like the way I've cultivated that was, you know, going traveling, being outside of my normal environment of Adelaide, and getting different reflections from people that didn't know who I was back home. Like just reflecting who I am in that moment, and just like, wow, I am this dude. I am that guy. You know what I mean?
And you're like, hell yeah, and you embrace that. Yeah, because I find like myself, especially over the past, like this year, I'd say, like the last 6 months for me, have been so masculine, and I'm quite masculine. I've done all the tests and stuff, and it's like, okay, as far as it goes, like I'm pretty embody. I like to embody the masculine type of things as well. But as far as like the feminine types of things, like I find myself, if I'm